Is that all right?
Oh, it's true stuff, yes.
Can the end people stand up beside you, Alex, please?
A short break while we get our picture taken. For those of us that are important. Just talk among ourselves.
They sit down. Beside each other.
Well, good evening, Rotarians, honoured guests, artistes and of course fellow athletes. Welcome to the Burns Supper of the Rotary Club of Bridge of Allan and Dunblane. I said last year it didn't seem like 12 months since we'd been here before, so it doesn't seem like 2 years since we were here 2 years ago. These things come round so quickly. On behalf of President John, can I welcome our guests and our members to our Burns Supper. Here we are again to celebrate the life and some of the works of Robert Burns. Tonight we're going to remember Robert Burns through good food, good drink, good songs, good talk and good company, along with good friends, and I'm sure that we'll all enjoy ourselves as we do every year. We have a busy programme to get through tonight, so let me begin by introducing your top table. Later on in the evening, the immortal memory of Robert Burns will be proposed by Craig Mayer, who's on my far right. The toast to the lassies will be proposed by Harry Morton, who's on my immediate right. The reply will be given by Dorothy Anderson, who's on my immediate left. And during the course of the evening, we're going to be entertained by Sarah Aldred, who's here on the right, and Charlie Methven, who's here on the left. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you your top table. Start off the proceedings tonight. We're going to do nothing that's different from tradition. We're going to do grace, and I would call upon Rotarian Hugh McCrae to say grace.
Hey, Selkirk grace. Some eat and can eat, some but eat and want it. But we hae meat and we can eat, so to say the Lord be thanked. But some hate meat and govern and greet, resisting all coercion. So bless the tatties and bless the neeps, the vegetarian version. Then full, excuse me, then filled with fruits or field and vine, and maybe feeling kind of frisky. The one that water turned to wine, we ask to bless the whiskey. Amen.
please be seated. I would call upon Rotarian Laurie Orr, who's at the back.
Honest sons and babes! Great chieftain of the punt race! Oh, in the maw ye take your place. There's page, there's tripe, and there's firm. Oh, well are ye worthy of grace, as lang as my arm. Oh, the groaning trench are there ye full. Your hurdies, they're like a distant hill, and your pin, it would help to mend the mill in time o' need. While through your pores, oh, the dews distill like amber bead. His knife, oh, see rustic labour dicht, and cut you up with any split. Oh, drenching your gushing entrails bricht like ony ditch. Oh, and then, oh, what a glorious sight, warm, reeking, rich. Oh! Then horn for horn they stretch and strive, deal pack the hindmost on the drive, till all their wheel swallowed kites belive are bent like drums. And old Goodman mislike to arrive, he goes, oh, blanket hums. Is there the French ragout, or olio, if it's to a sou, or fricassee with Mackie's pew with perfect scunner? They look down with sneer and scorn for view on sick of dinner. Poor devil. See him in his trash. As feckless as a withered grass, his knee van it, through bloody flood of field to dash. Unfit. But mark, the rustic haggis fed. Oh, the trembling earth resounded tread, clapping his wally Neva blade. He'll make it whistle, and legs, and arms, and heats will snag, like taps of thistle. So, your powers will make mankind your care, and dish them out their bill of fare. All Scotland wants nae skunking ware that japs and luggies. But if you wish her grateful prayer, gie her a haggis. To be upstanding, and toast the haggis.
Take the beast of all. While Craig wipes himself down and gets all the haggis off, we're going to start the meal. During the course of the meal and shortly thereafter, gentlemen will pass among you. During the course of the meal, gentlemen will pass among you, Graham Russell and Rod Jones, with raffle tickets. What Graham and Rod lack in subtlety, they make up for in no other way whatsoever. So they'll be passing among you with raffle tickets. There are raffle prizes behind me this evening. Otherwise, ladies and gentlemen, do enjoy your meal. Well, welcome back, and I hope you enjoyed your meal. Before I go on, there wasn't really an appropriate opportunity earlier on, but I would just like to give a name check at this point to our piper, Ben Adam. Ben piped here last year. piped here last year and he piped here this year, but he'll not be piping next year because that's him leaving school and we can't have him back. Because if he comes back, if he's not at school, he'll want paid. And that's never going to happen. So well done, Ben. Thanks very much for all your efforts. So, the entry in the Ayr Parish Register reads simply as follows. Robert Burns, lawful son to William Burns in Alloway, and Agnes Brown, his spouse, was born 25 January 1759, baptised 26 by Mr. William Dalrymple, witnesses John Tennant and James Young. So began a life in Scotland, a Scotland of only 1.2 million people at that time, a Scotland only recently part of a united kingdom, a Scotland part of a Europe at war, Scotland where farming was at best primitive, but a year when in England John Wesley was banging out 15 sermons a week. 15, Dorothy? Although to be fair, if you're doing the same sermon 15 times, I dare say that's pretty easy. Haydn was writing his first symphony. So, 260 years later, here we are. Why? Well, to give us some insight into that, I'm delighted to call upon Craig Mayer to propose the immortal memory. Now, Craig will be known to many of us. Craig will be known to all of us, probably. He's spoken to the club on a couple of occasions. He's a teacher, musician with Skelpit Lug, author, historian. If he had the sideburns, he'd just be another Robert Burns. I'm sure he's got many more strings to his bow, despite the fact that he did admit to us the last time he was here that he came from Bo'ness. So, very well done for that. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, I am absolutely delighted to invite Craig Mayer to propose the immortal memory of Robert Burns.
President John, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, excuse the croaky voice. Yes, when Alistair was telling you when the comfort breaks were going to be, I hadn't yet told him how long this is. So I've still got this lying in front of me. So if anyone's thinking of leaving early. When I first became a teacher at Wallace High School, there were no Burns suppers being held, but I inaugurated them there. And the way I did it was I got the 60 pupils to do everything. They, apart from cooking the food, they served the food, they did all the entertainments, all the speeches, everything. And this went great for several years until I had a head boy who was going to do the immortal memory. And he stood up and started to talk about Tommy Burns, the Celtic manager. And he went on, and it was only when he saw the beads of sweat dripping down my face that he put it down and pulled out the other speech. Well, rest assured, tonight I'm going to be talking about the right Robert Burns. In the homecoming year of 2009, the world-famous Burns Supper project saw 3,600 Burns Suppers held in 80 countries across the world. Over 500 of them in North America, over 100 in Australia and New Zealand, over 40 in France, 24 in Germany, even in Albania and the United Arab Emirates. So as we gather now, Rotarians and guests, part of a worldwide organisation, it got me thinking about why Burns is so popular around the world. He's been translated into at least 40 foreign languages, ranging from French, Portuguese, German, Romanian, Faroese, Spanish, Polish, Norwegian, most other European languages, to more distant Arabic, Mongolian, Persian, Japanese, Urdu, Swahili, Vietnamese, and many more, even Esperanto. Why? What is it about Burns that appeals to people all over this globe and draws them to his poetry? I'm sure that the first step was in the opening up of the British Empire. Anywhere the Scots went, as administrators, engineers, soldiers, missionaries, tea planters, doctors, traders, teachers, farmers, or in some cases Freemasons, there followed the appearance of Burns clubs and the holding of Burns suppers, wherever the Scots went. The evidence of this remarkable spread is clear to see. There are 20 statues of Robert Burns standing in Scotland, but the Scots have also planted 11 in Canada, 4 in New Zealand, 8 in Australia, and so on. Indeed, the first ever statue of Burns erected anywhere was at Camperdown in Victoria, Australia. Not back here, although it was carved from Scottish stone. Andrew Carnegie gave the world 3,000 libraries, but demanded that each one must have a bust of Robert Burns. He once said there could never be too many statues of him. So there are Burns clubs and statues to the bards all over the old Empire lands. Thanks to the Scots, this clearly explains part of the bards' worldwide appeal. More recently, of course, Scots have also spread to places beyond the old Empire, to the Middle East, China, South America, the USA, and so on. Here, the same traditions have been preserved by these expat Scots through Burns, Caledonian, or St Andrews societies, established in places as varied as Rio de Janeiro, St Petersburg, Cairo, Dubai, the Algarve, Dar es Salaam, and so on and so on. My Ceilidh band has played several times for the Caledonian Society in Limassol, Cyprus, for example. The World Federation of Burns Clubs has 400 member clubs around the world, but that's only the World Federation. Many other organisations, ranging from schools, a lot in Sri Lanka, for example, cultural groups, trade organisations such as the British-Swiss Chamber of Commerce in Zurich, churches, Masonic lodges, dance clubs, folk clubs, etc., hold Burns suppers. In fact, well over 1,000 organisations of one kind or another actually hold Burns suppers across the globe each year. There's the Singapore St Andrews Society's annual Burns supper, the New York Caledonian Society, the St Andrews Society in Hong Kong, the Old Alliance Bar in Paris, the Scottish Argentine Society in Buenos Aires, the Caledonian Society in Accra, Ghana, the Hawaiian Caledonian Society, the Caledonian Society of Bermuda. All kinds of people with Scottish roots or links who hold Burns suppers at this time of year. The St Andrews Society of Toronto's dinner has been known to attract over 2,000 people, for example. Now, it's probably not difficult to guess why this happens. It could be a Scottish rose-tinted melancholy for home. It might be a pride in the country of their birth. You'd need that to keep following the Scottish football team. It could be a tight little Scottish community simply proclaiming its identity in some foreign place, just as the Chinese and others do here in Scotland and the Irish do in America and so on. Whether it's Ceilidhs, Highland Games, pipe bands, clan societies or whatever, the Scots are as likely as any other people to be found celebrating their national identity abroad. I've got musician friends who travel every year to Azerbaijan to play Ceilidhs for the expat Scottish oil worker community there, for example. We get more Scottish the further away from Scotland we get, said the female chieftain of the Burns supper at Singapore last year. Now this much is easy to understand, I think. Scots scattered all over the globe will hold Burns suppers. But my second point is that not all Burns suppers held across the world are held by Scots, or Scottish expats, or even people of Scottish ancestry. This week, the Robert Burns Society in Maastricht, in Holland, with no Scottish names on its committee, will be holding its annual supper in Holland, and it will be in Dutch. If you look on YouTube, you'll find a huge Burns supper being held in Paris to mark the poet's 250th anniversary in 2009, complete with an excellent rendition of Tea Haggis, and it's all in French. If you go to the city of Brno, in the Czech Republic, you'll find the Scotch Dog Clan holding their annual Burns supper entirely in Czech. In Tallinn, Estonia, where the Scottish Club has just added a bust of Sean Connery to its bust of Robert Burns, they will be holding a Burns supper in Estonian. In Mexico City, the St Andrews Society will hold its supper in Spanish. And so it goes on. In Memphis, Tennessee, Belgrade, Yokohama, Bergen, Costa Rica, and dozens of other places across the world, Burns suppers will be held by local people who wish to celebrate Scotland's bard. So tonight I want to consider why Burns should appeal to people all over the world who are not Scottish. It's not hard to understand why the Scots will hold suppers wherever they are in the world this week, but why will people with no Scottish ties at all also do so? Why is it that in Vancouver, the Chinese community now connects Burns into its own New Year celebrations and calls the resulting mixture gung haggis fat choy? Just imagine that. Can I have a plate of gung haggis choy? Why is it that 40 plane loads of haggis are allegedly flown annually to Moscow from Scotland at this time of year? Why was Robert Burns the first person ever to appear on a commemorative bottle of Coca-Cola, icon of America? Why did astronaut Nicholas Patrick take a book of Burns's poems into space on his 2-week mission in 2010? What do all these people and millions of other non-Scots see in Burns? Now, on the face of it, an answer is not very difficult to come up with. The usual reason given is that he was the common man who wrote about common things, which anyone, anywhere could identify with. Patriotism, farming, love, sex, hypocrisy in politics and religion, drinking, carousing, superstition, things which can be shared by people of all races, tongues and religions across the world. Add to that a sharp wit, some outrageous comedy, his enjoyment of male companionship as much as his love of the fair sex, and the appeal grows stronger still. In fact, not only was he a common man, he was the first common man to write about the common man. For before him, poetry had been mostly posh, flowery stuff. No one before him would ever have written about a flea crawling up the bonnet of a lassie in church, for example. Recognising this, in March 1999, the United Nations cultural arm UNESCO officially declared Burns to be the world's first people's poet. The world's first people's poet, Robert Burns, acknowledging that he had basically been the first to write poetry, prose and songs about the commonplace experiences of the poor. Okay, so Burns wrote about the ordinary things of people's ordinary lives, but there is more to his worldwide popularity than just that. For example, he also had an ability to reach people on all sides of society and politics. Woody Guthrie's well-known song, "This Land Is Your Land," written during the Second World War, appears to be a patriotic song, and this appealed to the right-wing Americans. But it could also just as easily be seen as a socialist song, which says that America belongs to the people, this land is your land, which appealed to left-wingers. Burns had that same gift. A parcel of rogues, for example, can be taken various ways. But pith and power till my last hour I'll mak this declaration, we're bought and sold for English gold, sic a parcel of rogues in a nation. Now that could easily be read as Scotland should never have sold its independence, or maybe the Scottish poor were betrayed by the Scottish rich, or maybe Scotland is a parcel of rogues and can't be trusted with independence. Something for these people on all sides of politics. I wonder what Burns would have made of the Brexit rogues. Across the world, Burns can similarly be interpreted in different ways by people of all political shades. This has been especially true in China, where the sentiments of Scots Wahey connect strongly to the Chinese people, and I'll come back to this bit a bit later. Of course, Burns is also portrayed in some countries as the peasant farmer, the Democrat who loved liberty and attacked the power and pretentiousness of the rich. Throughout his poetry and songs, Burns often champions the working man at the expense of the upper classes and their hangers-on, especially the clergy or the government, as in Holy Willie's Prayer or the Deals of All with the Exciseman. Unlike Burns's contemporaries, the poets Byron and Shelley, who came from wealthier, more privileged backgrounds, Burns could identify with ordinary people, for he was one of them. In his words, we enter into a tavern, we hear the laughter, we taste the ale, we admire the girls, we listen to the stories of the ghosts and goblins. He describes the life of the common man vividly, because it was from his own experience. The Twa Dogs, for example, is a dialogue between an upper-class dog and an underdog. in which Burns contrasts the imaginary suffering of the wealthy with the real hardship of the poor. Here's Lewis, the poor collie dog, saying, "And when they meet with sair disasters like loss of health or want of masters, ye maist would think a wee touch langer, as they mun starve of cold and hunger." Surely this is an image which must ring with any poor person, anywhere. In his day, such poems, upholding the dignity of the underdog, were unknown elsewhere and were a revelation to people across the world. Okay, whether the poor ploughman is an entirely true or accurate portrayal of Burns or not isn't important. The fact is, it is how he's been seen, and is still seen in many countries, the peasant farmer. Nowhere can this be seen better than in Russia. For well over a century, Burns has been the people's poet of Russia. In Soviet Russia, he was hailed by the government as the poet of the people, the one who had supported the revolutions in France and America, the one who had showed his desire for social equality in poems such as The Jolly Beggars or A Man's a Man for All That. A new translation of Burns, begun in 1924 in Soviet Russia by Samuel Marsak, proved enormously popular in Stalin's Russia. Even at the height of the Cold War, the USSR honoured the 200th anniversary of Burns's birth with a commemorative stamp in 1956, the first stamp to him anywhere in the world, Soviet Russia. However, if we look at how Marsak actually translated Burns at this time of Stalinist Russia, it becomes easier to understand his state-sponsored popularity. First, to make it conform to communist ideology in Russia, all dialect expression was removed to distance the text from Scotland. All references to the name of God or to names from the Bible were also omitted. Indeed, none of his poems about religion were translated at all, except those which satirised religion. Also, no poems were translated in which Burns addressed aristocratic or gentry friends, because as a hero of the poor, Burns could not be portrayed as having friends in the upper classes. Meanwhile, beggars, robbers, farmhands, poor people were of course idealised. So the selection of Burns which the Russians got was enormously popular, but it distorted, but it does make him popular in Russia, part of this round the world. Marsak's translation sold over 600,000 copies in Russia and made Burns the popular poet which he still is, even in post-communist Russia. Indeed, the Kremlin's annual Burns Supper is even televised for Russian TV. I can't remember any national Burns Supper being televised in Scotland. When I was a teacher at Wallace High School, we had a new pupil came from Russia. His parents moved to the university, and he came into the first year, 12 years old. His name was Oleg Andropov. And that year, when time came round, I invited him to that year's Burns Supper. "Oh, Robert Burns, my heart is in the Highlands. My heart is not here. My heart's in the Highlands of chasing the deer." He knew that from his education in Russia, in English. And so this week, Robert Burns Suppers will be held all over Russia, not just in the British Embassy in Moscow, but in places where